Hello, thank you for watching. As far as true crime, I like to watch true crime material. One of my favorite shows are the Forensic Files. I also like Lieutenant Kenda. I love Kenda. My mom, she passed away about 5 years ago, but yeah, she loved Kenda and she got me liking Kenda, and so he's on the ID station. So there's different channels I like. You know I So I like true crime, but as far as making content myself or making video, I probably shouldn't even call it content. It's basically just speaking. Just as far as making videos myself, the only case I really talked about so far was Lizzie Ann Frone and Chris Kramer's. And the reason for that is because I think a vast injustice, a big time injustice has occurred. I don't see how someone can take reason, apply reason and logic, and actually come to the conclusion that foul play most likely did not happen. I think foul play most likely did happen, and it's like the tourist industry in Panama is off the hook. And I don't like that. So I think an injustice occurred, and that's why I made content on it. Now, there's many cases, like if you watch Forensic Files, or you watch Kenda, or you watch YouTube creators, a lot of times, justice has been done, or things haven't really sparked me and made me think, man, something wrong happened, and I want to talk about it. But there's a case that I do want to bring up something, and that was the Scott Peterson case. Now, the Scott Peterson case can be a little, well, I tell you what it's a weird case to me. And to some people, it's like really obvious that Scott Peterson's guilty. But here's the deal: is reasonable doubt. In the United States of America, to be found guilty of a criminal charge, you have to be found guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And the really good defense attorneys, they can really stretch what that reasonable doubt means. Beyond a reasonable doubt. Do we really think that Scott Peterson, beyond a reasonable doubt, was guilty? Not do we think he was, but well, yeah, do we think he was beyond, not do we think was he guilty, but was he guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Now, there's a couple of big things in the Scott Peterson case that people mention. Yes, he's a liar. Now, being a liar doesn't make you, there's a lot of people that lied under police investigation that were found to be innocent. So lying in itself, although it's a red flag, it's not that big of a red flag, really, because there's quite a few innocent people that have lied in certain ways when they were investigated by the police. The fact that he didn't take a polygraph test, honestly, if I was a suspect, I wouldn't take a polygraph test. I wouldn't. If I was innocent, but I was a suspect, I wouldn't take it. There's a reason why it's inadmissible at court. So, and while you're taking the test, did if a detective said I flunked when I really didn't flunk and it would make you nervous, I'm not the type of person. I've never been in that situation, but I'm not the type of person that would confess to something I didn't do. But some people are. There are false confessions, and some of it might have to do with how people relay the message of the polygraph test. I don't know. I haven't really gone too much into that. I'm just kind of speaking out loud. Anyway, back to the Scott Peterson case. So there's no forensics that pointed to him actually doing it. There was no blood. There's no DNA. There was no murder weapon. No eyewitnesses. Um, they didn't even know that Lacey had definitely passed away until her body was found, at the bay. So, what's the evidence? There's nothing in the house that pointed to Scott Peterson. It's all circumstantial stuff. Well, really, the big thing that the big reason, and this was one thing that turned the jury. Well, the jury was already turned, but this was one thing that kind of just slam dunked it. Was his affair, and his girlfriend Amber. She her testimony was one of the things that and the things that she said. Now, this is a key thing, and some people think that they would vote that Scott Peterson is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt because when Lacey, when Amber asked Scott Peterson about his wife, while his wife was still alive, he started the affair while his wife was still alive. He said that, well, my wife's gone. Well, using the term gone, I mean, my wife's gone. Usually, if you got a divorce, you say, well, I'm divorced. But see, he wasn't actually divorced then, and divorce is public record. So if he would have used divorce, if he would have said, no, I'm divorced, well, she could have looked that up. Now, she could have looked up a death too, because obituaries are online. So she could have found that out, but of course she would have had to have her name because Peterson's a pretty common last name. But anyway, he told her that he told Amber, his girlfriend, his new girlfriend, that his wife was gone before she was gone. So people go to that and they say, well, Scott Peterson's, he's guilty because of that. But is he guilty beyond a reasonable doubt because of that? Really? I mean, if that's your standard, and then that means, in my mind, that there's a lot of innocent people that chose wrong words and lied, but they were innocent of the crime they're charged of, but would be guilty. I mean that's like a bad precedent to set. So what else makes Scott Peterson, seem guilty? Well, another big thing, and I'm leaving out, there's a lot of small circumstantial stuff, but another big thing was that Amber, and we know this. Scott Peterson admitted this. He said, and he said that this was the first Christmas that he was spending without his wife, and he said that while Lacey was still alive. He told Amber, his girlfriend, that this is going to be the first Christmas I spend alone without my wife. So people go to that and they think, well, he said that, so he had it all set in his mind that he was going to kill her. He was going to kill Lacey and his child. And when I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking, hasn't anyone ever tried the sympathy factor when there's a woman you like and you're trying to get her to like you, and I don't know, women seem to have a lot softer hearts than guys do, and you show a woman your dog, you show her cute stuff, and then you say stuff that's depressing, and I don't know, it's yeah, it's suspect, but was Scott Peterson just trying to maybe play on Amber's sympathy factor? I think that's a big possibility. I don't think Scott's saying, "Well, this Christmas will be the first one without my wife," while his wife was still alive. He's lying to try to develop a relationship with Amber, and he's saying, I think what he has to do, not as motives for Lacey, but in order to pursue his relationship with Amber. I'm not saying he's innocent, okay? I'm not saying that. But I don't think murder is on his mind here. I think he's trying to play up to Amber to get that relationship where he wants it. So, probably the biggest factor for me personally that makes me think that Scott Peterson, if I'm going to try to use, now I'm not just going to say whether I think he's innocent or guilty. I think he's guilty. Okay, I think he's guilty. But do I think he's guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? Do I think that? Different people have our minds all work different ways. And some people, they think, well, just Amber saying that, Scott's telling Amber, my wife's gone. Well, to them, that would be like the biggest thing yeah, beyond a reasonable doubt. To me, that's not the case. What I do find that is extremely, extremely suspect, like, really big suspect, very much suspect, is Scott Peterson. He he supposedly was fishing in I think it was the San Francisco Bay. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry, but it was a bay, and his wife was found, basically not basically in the same bay, like in the same general area that he was fishing. But this is the deal: is that like during the investigation, the police would go and like search that area, and Scott Peterson, he would rent vehicles and go, and he would like watch over what the police are investigating, and he was trying to spy on the police and didn't want people to know by renting vehicles to do it. And we know that he was already a suspect and he was being followed. The police were monitoring his whereabouts. So people have assumed his guilt because, you know, we know he did that. And yeah, I mean that is something guilty, you know? He would have been better off just watching the police investigate in his own car. Just going and getting a rental car is really, really odd, like you're trying to hide something. But is that proof in itself? No, it's not. Now, is that proof in itself, along with what he said to Amber? I don't think so. Now, something else that's like mentioned a lot is how Scott Peterson was found when he was arrested. He was driving, and he was driving sporadically because he'd been followed by the police. He thought the cops were following. No, he was followed by the press. He thought the press was following him, and he was trying to get away from the press. And he was very sporadic. And the police were like, "Well, Lacey's body's found. We don't know if it's Lacey's or not. Someone's been found, but we better pull him over because he's driving erratically." Well, they stopped him. They pulled Scott Peterson over, and they found, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but they found a lot of cash. They found different burner cell phones. They found just a lot of these things. He bleached his hair. He had a different look. I mean, it was like people like said what he was found with the phones, with the cash, you know, with you know, with what he had, he was making. He was trying to bail out and go to Mexico and live there and just hide out in Mexico. Okay, well, you know what? That's. Do we know? Do we have? Can we prove that beyond a reasonable doubt that he was going to Mexico? I don't know. Probably not. But even if he was going to Mexico, let's just say he was going to Mexico. Let's say Scott Peterson, he was he was kind of getting what he could. Now, this is what I don't get also was what was found was Viagra pills and Ambien pills, sleeping pills. Those pills, is there some sort of like drug reaction that I don't know about that's combined when you take those two pills? I mean, one end you have Viagra, and on the other you have sleeping pills. That's like a really odd situation. It seems like one pill gets your blood flowing, and the other one it makes you tired. Anyway, okay, so Scott Peterson goes to Mexico. He was trying to get to Mexico. I don't know if that's the case. Maybe he admitted it and I missed it. So maybe Scott Peterson was going to go to Mexico. Does that prove he killed her? Well, think about it. I mean, you're people in public opinion are like coming down on Scott Peterson. I mean, the press is all over him. He's being followed. He I don't know how to what extent he knew he was being followed, but he knew he was a suspect. And when Lacey was found, he knew that he would be one that would be he might be tried. I mean, he was on the hot seat. Can you see where an innocent person might actually think, well, you know what? Whether I did it or not, they're only focusing on me. They can't get past me. I mean, you watch the Nancy Grace show, and I just saw a clip from it, but you can see like from that clip where it was going. I mean, people were coming down on Scott Peterson, like he wasn't showing enough emotion, and he just going to a foreign country doesn't prove that you did anything. Just even if you're going to go to a foreign country for a while, that doesn't mean you beyond a reasonable doubt that you committed a crime. I mean, don't you think there's a chance that well, people are going to try you? You're the only suspect. People are going to try you, and you're going to leave because you don't want to be tried. So you add on. Now, this is the question. Everything that I mentioned, and I think these were the big issues. You add all this stuff up. Well, first of all, you take each individual thing, and I think it far from paints beyond guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But now you add it all up. Does it paint a picture of him being guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? I don't know. I don't know based on this circumstantial evidence. This is suspect evidence. I mean, it makes Scott Peterson look like a coward, makes him look like a liar, makes him look like a cheater, makes him look like a scumbag. But does it make us believe beyond a reasonable doubt that he's guilty of Lacey and Connor's death? I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking of someone like OJ who got off that DNA evidence was against him, and Scott Peterson who had no DNA evidence; it was just circumstantial evidence. But if you just take everything I combined, okay, you might be able to come up with, okay, you might be able to take that step and say, okay, well, perhaps it was beyond reasonable doubt. But see, when you're going to prosecute someone, you can't say perhaps it was beyond a reasonable doubt. It either is or it isn't. So if you say, well, if you say maybe, then you automatically have to say it isn't. And if it isn't, that means he's innocent. Well, not that he's innocent, but legally he's innocent. About this case, Lacey's dog was found with the chain on, and Lacey's dog was found by a neighbor, and the neighbor put the dog in the yard. Now, it appears that Lacey had taken this dog for a walk. Now, there are several witnesses that claim that they saw a pregnant lady taking a dog for a walk that matched Lacey's description, but the person that found the dog says that the time when she found the dog was before, these people claim they saw her. But there's like this different information about people who possibly spotted Lacey walking the dog, and the dog did have a leash on. So here's the issue: is you you have on this one end you have all this circumstantial evidence that I'm not even sure it does point to reasonable doubt, but then you have possible eyewitness testimony of Lacey when Scott Peterson, was already left the house when he didn't kill her. So doesn't that take away some of the certainty you have from that guilty verdict? Doesn't that add some reasonable doubt? I think it might. Another thing is that there was this, there were a few pregnant women that within like a 6 month, I think it was 6 month to a year time period, were killed. There seemed to be some sort of killer that was, targeting pregnant women. Lacey Peterson was 8 months pregnant. There was also a burglary that happened in Lacey Peterson, neighborhood before Lacey Peterson was, you know, be, before she went missing. I mean, there was a burglary that happened, and the cops say, well, this happened, like a day or it seems like the police are trying to say this burglary happened afterward. But the thing is when Lacey went missing, there was press in front of the house, and they would have noticed if a burglary happened on that street. So is there a chance that Lacey could have had a run-in with the burglars, and they killed her? That's possible. Now, Lacey's body ending up, in the bay, near where Scott was fishing, it's more likely he did it than the burglars who would have taken the body to the bay. But still, is there a possibility, a reasonable possibility, that the burglars could have killed her? I mean, I don't see how you couldn't say yes, especially with a neighbor saying that the dog was leashed up but wasn't walking. People are like, well, pregnant lady, 8 months pregnant, can't take a dog for a walk. Well, I know dogs pretty well. I've always had a dog. And there are certain leashes out there you can buy where no matter the size of your dog, they won't be that hard of a walk. So really, I'm trying to really get this case. Scott was, in my opinion, he was found guilty of murder for being a scumbag, for being an adulterer, for being a liar. But for not showing sadness or emotion at Lacey's death, but I don't think he was found being guilty based on beyond reasonable doubt. And another thing is that the foreman in the case, now this foreman, he was a doctor and he was a lawyer. So you're talking like one of the best possible foremen you could just have based on your marriage, based on your degrees. I mean, you have a foreman who knows the legal system, and you have a foreman who actually would understand the forensic evidence because he's a doctor. So you have him being the juror, and he's a foreman, and he like went over the case like big time, and he had like all these notepads. I think I heard he had 19 notepads of like information he wanted to go through each of these details with the jury, but they were frustrated because they just wanted to find Scott guilty. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but this jury foreman was removed. So and he was leaning. I mean, he wasn't sold that Scott was guilty, and he was removed for someone else who was already blatantly against Scott Peterson. So the best juror it seems like you have is the one that's removed. And he wanted to go through all the evidence. So, see, we only know so much. This trial, it wasn't televised. So that jury knows what they heard. And also what I think is also interesting is that, and the jury didn't like that this was an information. I don't think this was information presented to the jury, but there was someone that tried to show what would happen if you threw 100 pounds off of this Scott Peterson's boat in the bay. And every time someone tried to throw a 100 pounds dummy off of the boat, like if Scott was trying to remove Lacey, the boat would capsize. Well, there's people that say, well, so what if the boat capsized? That Scott went home and he took a shower right away anyway because he was wet. So that means that it capsized. Friends, if you're just fishing on the water, you're going to get wet. All right, that's just part of it. Somehow the water's going to get to you. That doesn't mean you capsize. Actually, the boat capsized. I can see it being more chaotic. And people also, another thing people say is that Scott Peterson, he bought concrete, and he said that he used some of the concrete for his garage, and he used some of it for an anchor, but then some of it for his driveway, but they couldn't find that concrete that he bought in his driveway, so all of it was used to make anchors. And he's saying he made an anchor for his boat, and people were thinking, well, he made an anchor in order to dump her body and weigh it down. Well, whether he made an anchor, that doesn't prove anything. If you have a boat, I mean, so what? He used the whole 5 bags in an effort to make an anchor. Does that prove he's guilty of making an anchor specifically to weigh her down? No, it doesn't. I mean, there's several different uses for anchors. So this is a really hard case for me. And I know this is like different from my, Lisa Ann Frone and Chris Kramer's cases because, this case, there's well, people are passionate about it, and also, I'm pretty firm on Chris Kramer's and Lisa Ann Frone. If you listen to my videos, I clearly, strongly believe that foul play was happening. They were killed. Bad things happened to them, and people that don't see that, I just don't get it. How you don't see it. Now with Scott Peterson, this is an issue I wanted to raise, and just don't think I'm just saying, well, he should be let off scot-free. I'm not saying that. In many ways, this video has been a discussion with myself, but I'm trying to discuss it with you. Is there, to me, it seems like there's some reasonable doubt in there. I mean, just the people that say they saw a pregnant lady walking, and just two possible people that wanting, just the two possible people that wanted to get, like possibilities. The person that was aiming at pregnant women, and also the people that committed the crime. And when these people that were robbers, they committed that crime, one of the things they said is we didn't have anything to do with that pregnant lady. Well, why would someone just come out and say that if you weren't asked about it? I'm not saying they did it. I'm just saying it's just a bunch of red flags. And all of these red flags aren't just by Scott Peterson. Most of them are. I I think Scott Peterson, I think that he was found guilty largely based on public perception. The police force knew that they'd get a lot of feedback and they didn't try him because the court of the court of public opinion had him found guilty already. And they retried the case just based on all the circumstantial evidence. And if the jury was allowed to, listen to the theory about the boat capsizing, if they were allowed to listen, see, they were they didn't get to hear these witnesses that saw a pregnant lady walking. The jurors didn't get to hear that. I think that could change some things. Anyway, thank you.